Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Darren After the Credits, number 49. Hope everyone's having a great day. Hope everyone's doing well this evening. I'm joined by my friends, Taz and Darth. Fellas, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
I am very good. It feels weird to now be back down to one TV show after months of Penguin and Agatha and Superman and Lois. It's been a while, Darth, since we've only had... I'm trying to think back when was the last time we only had one thing. Maybe The Boys? Like The Boys finale, potentially?
Sure.
Or was
And then there was one.
And then there was a...
Like Invincible. Like the way Invincible lines up, that always ends up on its own.
Yeah, I think we ended Invincible by itself. No, I think we ended X-Men by itself, because it was Invincible... Then X-Men kind of laid into it a little bit. But no, I'm very excited. I think, pros and cons. Cons, we have less show to talk about. It's always fun to have multiple things. Pro, though, is Superman and Lois gets all of our attention. Yes. We can sit here and talk about it for 2 hours if we really wanted to. Like it has our full bridled attention, and it deserves it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does. We're in the end game now, for real. Like, this was the third to last episode. Next week's the penultimate, and then the finale. We're going to be done first week of December.
I am so sad.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready for it to be over. The finale's called what? It went by so fast or something like that?
It sure did.
It sure did. Yeah. It feels like just yesterday we were reporting on Superman and Lois being an actual thing, and it got picked up and it was filming and delays, and then it came out, and then we were all upset that there was like 3-week breaks every couple of episodes, and then it's been a wild journey.
Yeah, go ahead.
The that title does not leave me optimistic for where things will end up. I feel like it's going to end up on a bummer.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. I will say it just
theories based off of titles. Go ahead, but I've got a couple theories based off of titles.
It really just hit me that it's been 4 years since Crisis as well. It's been 4 to 5 years since a Crisis has happened.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like if it's like we're talking, it's been 4 seasons since Superman and Lois. Superman and Lois happened after the last Arrowverse crossover, so it's been that long since we've had a proper one.
Yeah, and Tyler Hoechlin's been Superman since like 2016.
Yeah.
Which is insane to think about too. Yeah, which we talked about last time.
He's been Superman for going on 9 years at this point, which he will, I think, like outside of Smallville, which is obviously, yes, he's been Smallville. You never being Smallville, that 10-season arc or whatever, but like he's probably going to end up being the longest running proper Superman, like as we know and breathe Superman, which is Tyler's just always got to be my guy. It's going to be, we've also talked about this, it's going to be so hard for David to come in here. Like, David's going to do great. I have my full confidence in the new Clark Kent, Lois Lane. I'm excited to see it. They have large shoes to fill, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do. I think the fact, too, that the medium of a TV show is so much more a facet that you can kind of dive deeper into. Like, you don't get as much time with a character in a movie like you do in a TV show. You get to really dive deep into the nitty-gritty. We get to see stories that we would never see on the big screen. Like, I don't think that they would ever do something as in-depth as they have done with Superman and Lois in a movie. Like, talking about, you know, now we're at, like, Superman's mortality, basically. Like, you know, that's kind of crazy. Like, we've done Death of Superman in a ton of different projects, but, you know, what happens when Superman has to face the reality that, you know, he's not going to be Superman forever?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's something that, you know, we can talk about the quality of these CW shows all day, but the thing that they will have among any other superhero project ever is that we, for a long time, spent 22 episodes a season for like 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons straight with these guys. Obviously, Superman and Lois is lower than the other ones, but, you know, we spent all this time, the everyday, like, we got to see, okay, they wake up and they make breakfast, they go solve crime, and they do, like, you have that with them that you didn't get in the MCU, you didn't get it in the DCEU, you didn't have it over on Netflix or Freeform or any of the other things. And I think they nailed the humanity of these heroes. Like, they nailed, if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, what it means for our heroes to be human. Like, what it means to live in their shoes a little bit. Like, you know, what does it mean for them to go on dates and, you know, become parents and, you know, fall in love and find who they are, you know, in whatever facet of life that they found themselves in. And I will always appreciate that. Like, there was a pit in my stomach when I saw the 2-episode left thing pop up on the promo for last night's episode. I was like, oh, we're here. We're here already. Okay. Let me just block that out of my mind until it's over, and then
then it'll be just like when the Flash ended, and it'll actually hit us that it's over. Like, we're gonna be sitting here talking in 2 weeks, and just be like, oh, that's it. That's how it ends.
This thing with that is like, with the Flash, we had like all of those seasons, and then we wanted more, but we knew he wanted to leave. The difference is we know these guys have lots more to tell.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be hitting different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very similar way to like Stargirl.
Yeah, for sure. And with every one of these shows that have ended, I've processed that with, it's fine. I still have, you know, this show and this show and this show. I have blah blah blah. Flash, I was very sad. I was like, no, I'm coping with that because we still have Superman and Lois, and if you like it or not, Gotham Knights at the time. I was like, okay, we're going to distract me with those shows for now. There's still one more. There's no longer one more. This is it. This is the last one. And I'm very curious how I'm going to react to that. How am I going to deal with that? It's, you know, I'm glad. I am glad that the DCU is starting at the same time, though. So that will probably be how I process, of being like, you know what, screw it. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same universe. It's just, and it's over here now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're gonna have Creature Commandos. We're gonna have Peacemaker season 2. We're obviously gonna get the full on James Gunn Superman movie. But again, I don't think it's gonna be very tough to see a change from, we get this big focus on Superman at this point in his career as well, to then have to say, all right, we had more stories to tell there, but we're done. We're just gonna, you know, reboot, go back to the beginning, start over again, and go back to ground zero when we still had this other version of Superman that could have continued for another 2, 3, 4, 5. This show could have gone 10 seasons easily as well. Yeah. Like, I know they were talking about that 7-season plan, but, you know, I think if budget was an issue, I'd be fine with another 6 seasons like season 4 is. You know, give me 10 episodes, you know, half of them have a lower budget. Maybe we don't get to see quite as much, you know, action. We don't get to see as much Superman-ness. But as long as we get to spend more time with Clark, as long as we get to spend more time with Lois, as long as we get to spend more time with the boys and everything, I'd be happy.
I agree. I you know, I have that state of mind as well, where it's like the bargaining of like, no, I just, if I can just have this, just give me a little bit more. But I'm also so grateful that the show is getting this. Like, we are, like, Superman and Lois is in the very rare minority of CW shows that got this. You know, Walker didn't get this, Starco didn't get this, Gotham Knights didn't get this, you know, Batwoman didn't get this, Legacies didn't get this. You know, I'd even argue things like Black Lightning did technically get it. Like, I feel like just so many of these CW shows over these last several years just did not get to wrap up their story like Flash and Superman has. So we've been complaining this season about certain things with the budget and like certain things that were definitely cut out. And we'll talk about this week because there's been some things that I really noticed that we're missing out on this season because of the budget. But I am grateful that they are.
I feel like this is what they were saving up for. I feel like this is where it was all spent.
Well, I just meant it's like there's things in this episode. I was like, oh yeah, that's the first time we're getting blank. Because of the budget.
I agree. I felt like, we'll get into it, but especially having John Henry and Nat there and their interactions with the rest of the cast. I know I saw you talk about this a lot on Twitter, but just those, small little details that we took for granted in previous seasons, actually getting them back now at episode 8 of a 10 episode season, it definitely makes you
that hurts my heart
wonder.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But, I say with all that being said, we can jump right into episode 8 of Superman and Lois. Again, can't believe we're in the final 3 episodes. I can't believe we're at the end so quickly. Time goes by when you're having fun, I guess, because I've been having a blast with this season.
It went by in a flash.
It sure did. We'll also talk about that in a little bit. Oh my god.
Flash forward to tonight.
I know, right? It was so ham-fisted. Oh my god!
And the fact he just hung on flash forward to tonight.
I love them for that. Taz, let's start with you. What was your opinions on episode 8 of season 4 of Superman and Lois?
I think this really carried on the momentum that we ended off last episode with. It carried on from Clark's reveal to the world perfectly. I think we got enough of kind of the aftermath of the fallout without taking up the entire episode being like, okay, what does this mean for Clark? What does this mean for the family? We got little bits and pieces there, paparazzi, people going after John and Jordan, and I didn't necessarily
Jordan's so hot.
That was hilarious. I didn't necessarily love their little side mission. It was like, oh, Candace broke up with me. Okay, let's go drive over and see her. Why? Number one, why did they drive there? Everybody knows they have powers. They could have just flown. Anyway, that side story aside, it did lead to one of the best Superboy moments in the show, with them both using their heat vision on the hacked version of Natalie's suit. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think Tom Cavanagh playing Gordon Godfrey, like, that's kind of a deep cut. Like, that's really cool, and I don't think anybody expected that. We finally got to see Milton Fine Brainiac, not green or glowing, but, maybe one day. And I think finally getting to see classic-looking Lex Luthor, and the fact that this version of Lex doesn't want to be that classic, well-put-together businessman. Like, he's very much so still, rough and rugged, and, having all that chaos, though, in his life as well. You could see just the fact that he was very much so on edge the whole episode, and I think that was a very interesting take as well.
Yeah, Darth, I really want to hear your opinions in a second, but like that's the one thing in the episode that I thought was so fascinating, was Lex being a control freak. I thought was really interesting. Yeah. Like a Lex that's like, I can't control every variable in this situation. Like he's not like tech smart like we see a lot of other Lex. He's not like a genius, but he's like, no, I have to. There's so many things that can go wrong, did almost go wrong, that he could not control. And I thought, like, that's such an interesting perspective on Lex Luthor, especially a character that we know is kind of like that. Like, typically Lex Luthor's whole thing is like, I don't trust aliens. Like, I don't trust this other life coming down. He could destroy us all in a second. Obviously, some of that's what he's projecting and some of that's real. But, like, that's kind of been his whole thing. And I think that stemming that from here, I think makes a lot of sense to me. I thought that was really cool. But Darth, what was your opinion on episode 8?
Absolutely fascinating. I was desperate for Lois to just completely just sandbag Lex, just give him the old reporter 1-2, especially Godfrey, because he was just chewing up the scenery, and I loved it. I mean, like the way he just kept turning into each camera and just
yeah,
you could just tell he was having so much fun being there. Yeah. It was so good. I really love Lois. She's amazing. I mean, we're jumping all over, but even just a bit at the end, like the amount of pride that she shows when she's like, an adoration and respect that she shows, like when she's looking at Clark, when he's telling him his news and stuff, it's great. Do you know what I mean? You really buy into the marriage and stuff and the chemistry that they have. I will always say these are my absolute Lois and Clark for forever and ever. They've done a profound job. And it's really funny because speaking of Crisis and Elseworlds, right? When they fought with Kingdom Come Superman, and they fought with a man that suffered more than any mortal man can bear, they kind of went, all right, hold my beer. Like, let me I'll show you. I'll show you suffering. I'll show you a Superman that suffers, you know? And here we are. And they just, the whole time, the show is telling us, be hopeful, be hopeful. Superman is full of hope. And they just keep hitting the family on the head, like, at every angle they possibly can. And just keep dragging him down and down and down to the point where it's like, with like the fairies and Peter Pan, like we're the ones keeping them alive with belief. You know what I mean? Like we're the ones keeping the family going with the hope and stuff. Because how are they going? It's crazy. It's so good. It just draws you in so much. Honestly, the fact that she was seconds away from making that call, it was rigging.
Yeah.
It was rigging. It was rigging because we know they got proof for days on days.
Oh
you know? Especially if the DoD chose to release their cameras.
Right.
And all it would have taken is just to have some CCTV at the goddamn farm. You know what I mean? Like, you've got John Henry putting up security systems everywhere else. Why not at the Kent's house? You know what I mean?
Just show the giant doomsday.
Fragile people that are still living there.
Yeah, like, come on.
You know what I mean?
DoD definitely has footage of Doomsday snapping, General Lane's neck outside with the guy that had Lex on the phone and being like, hey, do this thing or Doomsday's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Precisely. I mean, Lois should have been there like that. Come on.
Yeah.
I got my own bits. I got my own stuff. Let's go.
No, I really do love the dynamic that Lois has with Lex. Like, I think we talked about this a little. I don't know if it was last week or the prior week, but like, I do love how almost every single villain of the show has a connection with both Clark and Lois Lane. You know what I mean? Like, Tauro had a rivalry with Lois, and then Allie had a rivalry with Lois and Clark, and then Doomsday obviously has a thing with Lois and Clark, and Bruno has a connection with Lois and Clark, and now Lex has a dynamic with Lois and Clark, and it's like, again, I think I talked about this last week, but like when the show was announced and they said it's Superman and Lois, people were like, Superman and Lois, why does the female powers taking over, all blah blah blah? No, they didn't just put her in the title for shits and giggles. It's a show about Superman and also Lois. They shared the title screen. It is both of their shows equally, and I think that's amazing. I really do think.
No, go ahead.
I think in many cases there is no Superman without Lois Lane. Like, they complement each other's character in such a special way, and I think this show has brought that to a whole nother level, and I really do appreciate it. Like, their back and forth this week was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, I love to that point that every big physical threat for Superman started out as a kind of street level grounded Lois Lane villain. Like you said, with Morgan Edge, season 2 with the crazy cult and everything with her sister and all that. There were some ties, obviously, with Bruno Mannheim, with Pia and everything in season 3, and then now into season 4, we literally had Lois defeat Doomsday. Like, who had that on their bingo card? But like, it works. It works, and put a pin in that. We're gonna talk about Doomsday a little bit later, because I think my theory from way back is gonna come back into fruition, but. And the fact that, Lex's vendetta is not necessarily against Superman. He wants to get Superman out of the way so that he can tackle his real villain, which is Lois. So I love that. I love how Lois is such a massive part of the show, and this is how you do a co-lead properly. There was so many complaints on Arrow, on Flash, of making these side characters such a big thing. Superman and Lois doubled down on that. They put who many people would consider a side character in the title of the show and made her the co-lead and made her amazing. So I think, again, take notes, future DC projects, future Marvel projects from how Superman and Lois ran the ship.
Yeah.
And what's funny is Lex is quite the reverse, right? Because he started pretty much as a Superman villain in the fact that they would have like tat-a-tats and stuff, and Superman would deal with it or whatever. And then Lois gets involved, and then he's like, "Okay, step out of the way, guy. I got a real problem here." You know what I mean? And then ramps it up, and then he goes full supervillain for Lois, which is crazy.
It's really good, and it makes perfect sense to me. Like, it makes so much sense. Like, he's an enemy of Superman because Superman's in his way to get to Lois. Like, that's where their rivalry comes in. I think that's so good. And it makes, to comment on what you're saying, Taz, I don't mean to just bash on another DC show, but it makes me so sad that, like, this template is what I wanted for the Flash with a number one of their characters. It's like Iris West, one of the most, like, prominent DC women in history. Like, she's such an important DC character. And, like, I wanted just, like, a smidge of this. I don't even need, like, all reporter stuff all the time, but if they could have even just, like, dashed a little bit of that with what they do with Lois Lane, I would have been so happy. Same with Wally West. Like, I think the way they've approached John Henry Irons is exactly how I would have approached Wally on that show. Not there every episode saving the day constantly, but having his own side stories and having his own things. And when there is a big enough problem where they both come together, like, they can do that. Like, when was the last time John Henry Irons and Superman saved someone together? It's been at least, like, a season and a half, I think. Like, it's been a very long time. So I feel like if you could have implemented that a little bit over on that show, I would have been very happy. I think that could have been cool.
Yeah. I think backtracking a little bit, we were talking about how the big thing of the show is being hopeful while they're still, bashing us down and giving us yet another roadblock, right? So big celebratory happy moment in the episode. Lois has her final checkup. She's completely cancer-free. Yes. Big call for celebration, and then Lex decides to just interrupt the moment.
Yeah.
What were they gonna get for dinner? No bazoombas anymore. But that's great that we got that big win. Like, that was obviously last season's big thing outside of Bruno Mannheim. That was Lois's villain last season. And I think the fact that now they're flipping that and kind of turning that to say, hey, Lois might have gotten through her big thing, her big villain that she can't necessarily fight. Now Clark is going to have to deal with the same thing in his mortality, in his heart, and his powers diminishing, and the fact that, he's now on an artificial clock as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And hi, Kat. I always love those little moments between Clark and Lois that are just like these little moments of their relationship, and like Lois hugging Clark, being like, "I'm free. Like I beat it. We've done this." And like we had those ones last season, but like it came back instantly. And like in those moments, I was like, oh, "No, not again. We can't go through this again." Like I felt for Lois and that fear. Like it's and
it's
with the bad luck, with the bad luck she's had this season, I wouldn't even put it out of like the reason. Like, yeah, her father died and her boyfriend died, and her husband, and blah blah blah, and all these things are happening to her. Like, I wouldn't put it past, like, oh yeah, it's just cancer again, whatever. Just another thing on Lois Lane's bad luck chart. So
yeah, but no, she needed a win though. I think that was the big thing as well. Is like, again, it's Superman. It's got to be hopeful. So give us that little shred of hope. And I think, again, and that brings us to now the big threats as far as, Lex is out there, but also now Clark is handicapped with the fact that every single day he's waking up weaker. I really liked how they had John Henry run the tests, though, because, again, we needed to see more of them interacting. But I have a couple theories as far as, the route that they could take. I know we've kind of been discussing they end off the show. Clark is starting to lose his powers. Eventually, he just becomes human and lives out the rest of his days. The only wrench in that theory now is the fact that they were like, okay, well, how long do you have left? And it was like, well, about the same amount of time that Sam would have had or less. And it's like, okay, Clark's like what? I think 43, 45, something like that. Like, maybe another 20, 30 years maximum on that heart. Like, that's not great. He's not going to get to, age gracefully and grow old with Lois at that point. No. Like, he would still die before her. So we've got to get a replacement heart, right? Or we've got to, track Brainiac down and make him do his Brainiac things and, make us a cure, make us a better artificial heart. I guess we go back to the drawing board. Like, does Lex still have the original heart? Did he destroy a fake? Did Brainiac make clones of that original heart? Or the fact that Lois did her, talk down to Doomsday. Doomsday is still out there. Is he going to come back and help in this final battle? Because now we have Steel and Starlight without suits. We have continually depowered Superman. We have two Superboys who could barely take on one AI-controlled robot. So how are we going to take on Lex Luthor in a now Brainiac-modified Steel suit with the entire might of Brainiac and his entire force behind him? Right. Like, how are we going to actually take that down? Maybe bring in Doomsday, maybe have him sacrifice himself and then take that heart and plop it in Superman, and bada bing, bada boom, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, like, I had kind of put all my chips in the idea. I talked about this on here before, but like, it being a slightly somber ending of Clark not being Superman anymore, stepping down, and like the satisfying part of that where it's like, yes, I can no longer be Superman, but I get to die with my life. I get to live out the rest of my life, my life by her side. I don't have to sit by and watch everyone I love die. Like, I kind of like the idea of like spinning, yes, it sucks, but spinning it to be like, no, this is actually a blessing, what has happened to me. Ultimately, I get to live the rest of my days in peace with my family, kind of thing. But then this coming in is like, oh, no, I don't like that at all. I don't want him to die in 20 years or whatever it would be. Maybe it's a thing where, like, if he stops using his powers now, he can live a normal life kind of thing, where it's like, the less he uses it, the slower the process will go, which will give him another, like, 50 years or whatever it will be. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what we do. But yeah, at this point, honestly, I think you're right. I think we might go back to our episode 3, 4, 5 theories, where it's like, oh, that heart, or what? No, episode 2, 3, 4 theories, where it's like, oh, he still has the heart, or Doomsday has a heart, or whatever, bringing him back to full strength at some point, perhaps. Because I don't think we're having a sad ending to the show. I hope not. I don't think Superman's dying. I don't think, it might be like a bittersweet, like it could be a thing where it's like, yeah, we've lost in certain elements, but we have happy endings. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. We'll see. Because I think this is a show about hope. This is a show at the end of the day about, I've never felt more hope in a TV show than this show. Like, it's a show that no matter how I'm feeling, it makes me feel like better days are ahead. Yeah. So like, what next episode is like something about like dying again, or like, it's dying called a second time?
To Live and Die Again.
Yeah.
And who else has lived and died again? Doomsday.
I'm wondering if it's Oh, okay. Tell us your Doomsday theories then.
So yeah, I mean, basically that is number one. The episode title is "To Live and Die Again." We've got Lex in the full-on Lexo suit next week. He's going to going out against Superman. His goal from that trailer seems like, all right, I'm gonna kill Superman again. Maybe he tries to call in Doomsday and it backfires on him. Maybe last-ditch effort, Lois calls out to Doomsday. I believe she's still got the little buzzer, whatever.
Mm.
So, again, maybe he comes in there. Lex just because he created him, he knows how to kill him properly. And then they're like, oh, we've got this heart. Maybe that's kind of their backup, is they use General Lane's heart to all of its ability. And then in the end, they have to take that heart or somehow maybe transform Doomsday back into Bizarro Superman. And then he willingly gives up his life for Clark because he's like, hey, I know this world needs a protector. I certainly can't be that protector. I put you guys in this mess. Maybe I can take you out of that mess as well. Sure. And then, sacrifices himself in that regard by just giving up his life for our Clark.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that happening. I think, again, I liked the idea of there being like a bit of a sacrifice Clark had to make in terms of like his identity as Superman. Like I did like that, but I just if we are like 20 years and then you die, like we have to fix that. I do think that's something we have to correct in some way, and I also think we need to see Doomsday again. Like if he just never appears again, I think that's gonna be one of the things. Like, well, that was weird. He just ran off.
Yeah, it's
somewhere
kind of like a loose end that just never got tied up.
There has to be I feel like it has to be that he rips his heart out of his chest. That's the only way you're going to kill Doomsday, right? Because his whole thing is you cannot kill the guy. Like Superman could not kill him. You know what I mean? And he was fighting for his life. And he's a father, a husband. He knew he had to get back home, so he was fighting for his life, and he couldn't kill him. So if there's like something that isn't like him just full on ripping his own heart out, and it's just like a super, super simple thing, like that's just gonna have robbed all of the story.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely see that perspective.
Yeah. There can't be a thing where like Jordan laser beams them and then Clark's bomb, and then he's out or whatever. Yeah, there has to be a.
Right, it has to be something massive. Like you have to do something that Clark could not have done on his own.
Right.
Like I said, it's either Lex has some sort of contingency. Like, if you're going to create this big unstoppable monster, you better have a way to actually stop that monster. So maybe he's, like, implanted something that he can just, basically self-destruct him or something. Or shut him down, or at least deflate that Doomsday form. Like I said, maybe bring him back to standard Bizarro form. Maybe there's, some piece of tech that probably Lex didn't make, but Doomsday made it. Brainiac must have made it.
This wouldn't happen, but I think it'd be fun.
Straight down. Sorry,
go ahead. No, it's fine.
Go
ahead. I'm changing the subject slightly. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if he does shrink down, it needs to have this sound effect of like air escaping a balloon.
Yeah, just literally deflating them.
Yeah. It wouldn't happen, but I think it'd be really fun if they brought back, and obviously it's a different actor now, but they brought in the alternate version of John from the other Earth that's still up in like the DoD. Like it'd be kind of jarring because now it's obviously like a new actor. Like they'd probably need to get him a new jacket and stuff like that. But like I think it'd be kind of fun if like John got to face him now. Like he just like threw him across the field in season 2. It'd be cool if he now got to face him now that he also has powers and stuff like that. Like I think that'd be a fun little thing. Obviously, I don't think we have time for that, nor I don't know if it'd fit into the plot. But now that he has powers, it is something like, oh, that'd be kind of fun if they were able to do that. Let's talk about John, Henry, and Natalie a little bit, because this was their second episode of the season. I assume their final episode before the finale, just based on stuff. I hope not. I hope they're in maybe I guess there is only one episode before the finale now I think about it, so probably not. But yeah, they kind of finally came back, and I will say, to me, I talked about this a couple times on here, the most noticeable budget cut thing to me, because they are such an important part of the show, especially John. Like, I would consider John to be the third lead of the show, in prior seasons. Like, he is, like, next to Clark and Lois, one of the most important characters in the show. I think he's, like, in many ways, like, I would have loved if he went off and got his own spin-off, in a different timeline and stuff like that. I talked about how I wanted him involved in the Death of Superman stuff, but like I said on social media, this is in episode 8 of a 10-episode season. This is the first time Clark and John are having an interaction at all. This is the first time Clark and John and Lois are having screen time together outside of that 5-second scene where he's like, I'm taking him, bye, right? And the first scene, I think, with the kids all together. So, like, Natalie and the boys together. Which, obviously not their fault. I'm not being like, how dare you, show, for not doing this, because I completely understand budget. You can't have them here. I get it. But it is very disheartening to me. But, like, man, that trio is one of my favorite things in the show. Like, those three working together, having screen time, solving things together. I love that. I love that trio together. So the fact that this was the only scene in the season, what could very much be the only scene in this whole season, like, I don't know if they'll have that much time in the finale to do all that. So I really enjoy them back. I think John brings such a heart to the show. I think he brings such a balance to everything, kind of bringing everything together. How do we feel that they no longer have their steel suits? Because they destroyed Natalie's, and Lex has the steel suit. How are we feeling about that?
It's very convenient. It's very convenient. The fact that, when we saw that suit in the trailer, we're like, oh, that looks like John Henry's suit. Like, did he just take the schematics? Did the John Henry of this world have a prototype of that suit that then Brainiac built off of? But no, that's literally John Henry's suit. Mm-hmm. I think that, again, plays into the fact that Lex would be very easy to beat if you had Steel, Starlight, Superman, Superboy, Superboy 1, Superboy 2, just all going off against him at once, and he's just got one steel suit. Would be very easy to take him down. But the fact that now, like I said, again, we've got a depowered Clark. We've got Superboys in training. We have two heroes without their suits. So I think that's going to definitely level the playing field. I think it's going to even things out a bit. And I mean, even looking back at a couple episodes ago when Clark and Lex had their street brawl, like under red solar light and being depowered, he still held up his own against Lex. So I think, again, this is kind of their way of evening the odds a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think here's my request. I'm okay with Starlight's suit being destroyed. That's sad. I liked her having suits. Hello. Hope you're doing well. And like, I feel like her arc at the end of the episode is going to be like, actually, I don't need to be a superhero. I don't need to work at the DOD. I'm going to actually just be a teenager. Like, I think that's going to be her arc by the end of the final episode or whatever. Maybe there's a scene where like John's like,
change her mind again.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily see that after her decision at the end of this one.
No.
That's fair, I guess. I guess I kind of forgot about that. We'll see then. I guess maybe in the final episode we'll have her see them rebuilding the suit. But I don't think it's happening at this point, but I do really want like Steel to get his suit back, and I want the logo and I want the cape. Like it'd be so disappointing.
Do you want
it's
the helmet too?
They could have a division of
the helmet
in the
that
DOD.
looks like a face.
Maybe.
Like they could have a whole department of these people, like of people they trust, and like if they could program it in a way that it could only be used responsibly, and they have like full override control if needed. Mm-hmm. I think they could design some for other people.
Sure.
Well, didn't John Henry mention something this episode? I think it was like he said K Squad was like the team or the division or whatever that they're in. Mm-hmm. So that would make sense. And maybe that's their, I guess, the successor to what was it, the Supermen of America that they made early on. Yeah. So this is the DoD steals or something.
And maybe that can kind of go into the idea that I've said, like, if he does retire, Superman does retire, this idea of like, well, there's no longer a Superman, but there's Supermen, right? Like, Superman becomes more of an idea, whereas like, well, John and Jordan are Superman, but so is Natalie and Steel, and so are Billy Bob, and so is blah blah blah. Like Superman is more of like an idea than a person kind of thing. Maybe that could be, he's been inspiring people for 20 years now, and now it's paying off a little bit. Like that could be kind of cool if that's the approach I want to go.
I like that.
Or it can also go haywire, like it could go Terminator style, like it did this episode, and they all just destroyed the world. I don't know. Like there's also
what I love about this show is that we have 2 episodes left, right? And I am still completely 50-50 on whether or not we are gonna like have a depowered Superman or a fully repowered Superman.
Yeah, it can go either way.
And it can go either way. And that's so good. That's so good. Like, because there are some shows that we have watched and we have like reviewed and stuff where we basically could write the show.
Right.
We're like, we know this is happening. We know this is happening. This, it just leaves you guessing the whole way. And we sat and again, the second time I'm saying this a week in a row, right? The most triumphant moment we had with Superman got flipped on its ear in the chess reveal, right? With the diner. And again, we're sitting there whooping and hollering and being like, because Superman Clark kicked Lex Luthor's ass in the street, right? And is smashing his head in the window. The way he was able to spin that round and use the optics of that to make him just look like an absolute thug.
Yeah.
Genius, right? Because we were there like idiots. Like,
No, I kind of had a feeling that was going to come back and bite him.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it's like, it felt somewhat out of character. Like, as much as I loved it, it did kind of feel a little out of character for Clark to just be out in public and just be like, Luthor, let's just fight it out, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it did seem a little odd, and it definitely is very Lex Luthor to be like, okay, you did this to me. You drove me out of Smallville. You blocked this deal that I was going to have. All right, well, we're just going to spin it and make you out to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
In the exact same way he's trying to spin everything back onto Lois, being like, oh, like, you didn't look at the evidence properly. You sent me to prison wrongfully. You have no evidence to back up any of your claims that, I've done anything wrong. I'm just a simple businessman trying to live my life. I went to prison for a crime I didn't commit. I was taken away from my family, and now I'm just trying to rebuild. And that's why he went out there in his suit, in his clean shave. So yeah.
And that also, I think, makes sense, his plan to out Clark as Superman too, because none of this stands in court. None of this debate means anything, because it's like, no, she, Superman, vouches for this woman. She's a woman of the people. But then it's like, but the person who vouches for him is his wife. And who else vouches for him? The mayor, right? The mayor vouches for me. The mayor who you're friends with, who you go on coffee dates with, it's all like, to the outside eye, it's like, oh, actually, she doesn't have anybody that's not inside of her inner circle that can vouch for her. So it's like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Which is why her big wild card was going to be Lex's daughter. And then, obviously, all going according to plan. And I do think it was very interesting, too. I think also backtracking a little bit, too, about Lex and his control over everything. Again, I really did like that. I think I kind of connected with that a little bit too, because I'm just like, if like there's a bunch of chaos going on, I'm like, oh no, I don't want all this going on all at once. But I did like also the fact that he had to struggle with the fact that Amanda made this plan and didn't really let him in on it at all. She was just like, trust me, bro, it's gonna be fine. Just trust me.
I couldn't believe that.
Was coordinating it all with Milton the whole time, and Milton was planted early on in the episode to like distract the Steels and get whatever info he needed there.
I knew that was him as well. I knew it.
And also the moment he showed up, I was like, this guy looks so familiar. What has he been on? And I was like, I couldn't pinpoint it throughout the whole episode, and then I looked him up and he's like, oh, he's the coroner from Riverdale.
Oh He's also, I looked it up today because I did a thread of like all the all the Super Lois actors who have also been in the Arrowverse. He was in Legends of Tomorrow.
I saw that.
As a hunchman for Vandal Savage, and he was also an alien in Supergirl. I was like, huh, it's a small little world. Little world.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice the Riverdale thing. That's really funny. He loves the CW shows, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the CW loves reusing actors.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If you want to be on a ton of shows, just go live in Vancouver and just,
It's very much like Disney Channel, where they just recycle the same 10 people for like 8 years straight.
Yeah. No, but I love it because then you just get to see so many people pop up in so many different things, and it's just like, oh, this person's on this show, and then this show, and then this show, and then they create like their own paradoxes because the same actor has played like 5 different characters.
Right. Walker was crazy because it was like, okay, what's your face from Supergirl, and then Jared, and then blah 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 from this show, and then this show is like 5 different actors from just the other CW shows from the past 5 years. I thought was really funny.
How do we? I have a few things. One, I think it's interesting of the show to simulate a panic attack in the same way as they do of an emergence of superpowers, right? Because like I genuinely was 50-50 on which way that was going, because the way he was concentrating on stuff and like everything just sounded louder. I was like, no way is he getting superhearing? Like, what's he been taking? This is crazy.
Yeah. No, he's just like a control freak. Like, he can't control it. Like,
So, how do we feel about Amanda joining and having this like doomed megalomaniac romance that's like different for Lex? Normally, he's like a sole villain. Do you know what I mean? Quite egotistical and to the point where like Mercy Graves, isn't she like a robot? Do you know what I mean? Like, he trusts nobody. That he like we talk about, he's like a full control freak, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about this portrayal that he's in a like full-on relationship at the end of everything?
I'm still not, and I guess the kiss kind of at the end kind of like swayed me, like, oh, maybe he is into her, but like until that moment, I was like, I don't think he's really into her. I think he's just using her for whatever means. But even that moment when like Amanda's like, no, we are doing this plan. We're doing this right now. And it was like, oh, maybe he does have respect for her, because I feel like he wouldn't let anybody else do that to him. Like, he wouldn't let anybody talk back to him like that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the earlier portions of the season, it definitely seemed very one-sided on her part, and Lex was just kind of, going along with it. Like, yeah, I need you to do your job, basically. But then seeing how they kind of, shifted things in this episode and being like, the whole theme of like, oh, we both want the same thing, and Lex was like, what are you talking about? And then by the end of it, they're just like, yeah, okay, we're, supervillain team up couple here. So
yeah,
it's interesting. Again, it's definitely a different perspective on Lex. I think the real tell will be when stuff hits the fan. Does he still side with her and, take her along on whatever this, villainous journey is, or when stuff gets tough, he throws her to the wolves and is just like, all right, you're gonna take the fall for me, or maybe she ends up wanting to take the fall for him in a weird way. Like, instead of Lex going back to prison for all of this, like somehow, it's all framed onto her and she takes the fall for it, and Lex is left to control his empire once again. And so it's maybe kind of a bittersweet ending in that regard. Like, Lex has stopped his plan because somebody has taken the fall for him.
Right.
See, this is why I'm like in the department of I don't like it, right? Because she has been shrewd and ingenious and inventive in her position, and is strong and undeniable, right? This whole time she has to have been for the 15, 17 years that he's been in prison. Right? And she literally has everything she needs, even to the point where, like, when she wants to get out, she can get out. She's got her game plan set. Do you know what I mean? And she's just thrown it all away for a bang. And it's just like, for fuck's sake, like, you're better than that.
I really, and we're not going to spend time on it, nor would I even want them to spend time on it. But there is a part of me that wants to know, why him? Why exactly is she so fascinated with this guy? What has she been going through these last 15 years? What was their dynamic before he went to prison? Like, those are questions I'm asking. Not that I want them to spend time on that, because that would be such a stupid waste of time in the final season, right? But it's just like, this is a new character. I feel like in some way she is a little bit like two-dimensional in, you know, a way where it's just like, yeah, she's in love with him because blah blah blah. I would kind of love if like she was playing him in a way. Like if there is like at the end, maybe we switch it. Maybe Lex goes to prison again and she somehow is on top of everything. Like she's in charge of the Empire finally. And if there's a thing I was like, yes, it's all according to my plan or whatever.
Okay, so super weird random theory, right? What if they flip the whole Brainiac thing too, right? So we meet Brainiac this episode. So many people are thinking, okay, Brainiac's the big bad of the season. Like Lex is not the true villain. It's going to be Superman versus Brainiac in the finale. I doubt that. I highly doubt that. I
hope it's not at this point.
If we were going to go to 7 seasons, I think if we were going to go to 7 seasons, I think perfect Brainiac for season 5. Great. He's trying to, you know, bottle up Smallville for some reason. Go for it. I don't think we're going to see him be green. I don't think we're gonna see, you know,
I think he's just human.
Any mention. Yeah, I think he's just.
I think he's just a nerd. Yeah.
I think he's just this dude, Milton Fine. You know, he's a brainiac.
Yeah.
You know, that's how he gets his name. But if we want to go crazy cosmic, right? What if Amanda is the true brainiac and she just creates Milton as this like avatar or whatever to like actually do her work, and she's the real mastermind behind everything. Not a real theory.
You know how we get Brainiac as the villain, right?
How?
So
yeah,
you know what happened this episode with John Henry Iron being stuck in the suit while he's taking control of it.
Yeah,
there's going to get a point in the fight where Lex Luthor gets knocked out, and then Brainiac takes over the suit and just puppeteers him.
Yeah,
Brainiac versus Superman.
True.
Cool.
Or maybe he'll just boot Lex from the suit like he booted John Henry, and he's like, all right, it's time for me to take over.
I think it's just too late for that at this point, though. Like, I would hate, like, I feel like that's such like a movie thing.
It's too last minute, yeah.
Yeah, it's too, like, I feel like we see this a lot in like comic book movies where it's like there's like 5 different ideas. Like it's very Spider-Man 3. Superman. Yeah, like it's very Spider-Man 3 where it's like, okay, Sandman's the villain. Oh no, wait, it's Venom. Oh no, wait, it's Green Goblin. Like I want them at this point just commit to Lex. Lex is the villain. He has the suit. He's causing trouble. You know, he can be upgraded by Brainiac. It's a little Easter egg teasy kind of thing. But Connor, I do. Then, go ahead,
sorry. To just to counter your point, we do need the villain to have a team because we are talking about a superpowered family with a legacy of heroes with them, right?
Sure.
So you cannot just have one angry bald man dealing with all of that. Like he needs some kind of camaraderie or coterie. Like, you know what I mean? Like he needs not coterie. Fucking he needs the team. Do you know what I mean? Like he needs something. He needs some kind of backup, and it can't just be a guy in a chair.
Right. I do wonder if there's going to be some kind of like army of some sort. Like if it is some kind of like steel suit army, or like I don't even know what it would be at this point though. Like combat
Brainiac
that. Yeah,
box.
you're right. Yeah, like I have no idea. Like originally I was like, oh, maybe there's a thing where Brainiac takes control of the world, or he does something, but it doesn't seem like it's that kind of Brainiac. It doesn't seem like it's alien cosmic, I'm gonna take over the world kind of thing. And Connor, we are gonna pop on your question in just a second here because we haven't touched the Tom Cavanagh stuff, or we're going to in a minute. But I do want people to lower their expectations a little bit, because I think people are slightly expecting, okay, full-on Brainiac is coming, he's going to enslave the world, and with the Tom Cavanagh thing, I've now people like, oh no, Darkseid's going to come in episode 10. I'm like, guys, please settle down.
And temper your expectations.
Yeah.
Like, we've been through this before. Remember Mephisto? Chill.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I mean, what do we think is going to happen in these final couple?
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to gather. Is like, what is my ultimate theory here? I think it could go a few different ways. I think ultimately, obviously, we have to somewhat defeat Lex. So Lex's plan has to fail. Lois is back in the good graces of everybody. Everybody, holds Superman to this high, hero standard, that kind of thing. But I do think regardless of how Clark leaves this season, I think he is going to somewhat retire to an extent. I think he's going to be like, hey, these are my boys. They are going to be learning. They're going to be out there saving people. They are the next generation of Superman, along with John Henry Irons and his daughter. They are the next generation of heroes. I'm going to still be around. I'm going to still be, fighting crime, taking care of the big stuff. But for the smaller day-to-day things, I need to spend more time at home with my family. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm going to, leave this to my successors, my,
right.
for a lack of a better term, my Superman legacy.
Let's talk about this. Let's
That's hilarious. Sorry. In my head, I was just like, nerd. That was so cool. That was such a good line. That was such a deep cut. That was so good. You nerd. That was awesome. That was so good. I'm sorry.
Let's talk about the Tom Cavanagh stuff. Now, Obviously, all season we've been waiting for Tom Cavanagh. We knew he was coming. We theorized maybe he was Milton. We theorized very early on.
Why'd you do that to me?
We were like, maybe it's Eobard Thawne. Maybe it's Wells. Maybe it's, we had a lot of different theories. I wasn't expecting it this episode. I thought it was going to be next episode. I don't know why. For some reason, I thought it was going to be episode 9 or even episode 10. So when he showed up, like, we heard Milton was in the episode. Like, we had heard a couple days ago he was in the episode. I was like, all right, I'm ready for him. And then Tom Cavanagh showed up. I was like, oh, maybe it is Milton. Maybe this is Brainiac. No, he's Gordon Godfrey. Did anybody theorize this? Like, was this on anybody's bingo card?
No, not at all. And it's funny too, is I turned away for a second because I was right. I've been writing my notes during the episode, and I'm like, wait a second, was that Tom Cavanagh that I just heard on that TV? And I rewound it, and I'm like, that's Tom freaking Cavanagh, bro. Yeah. But it makes sense that he was in this episode because he's directing the finale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he needs the next episode's worth of week to prep for that episode. So that makes sense.
I wonder if they filmed that at the end, like if all of those scenes there was when he was like directing the final or something.
I doubt it, because if I understand this correctly, when they are directing episodes like this, is that week before their episode airs that they direct, it's like a research and development kind of week where they prep for it.
Gotcha.
And then the actual week of that episode, they're doing the episode, and then the week following, they're doing post-production. So, like, the reason why Lex wasn't in the previous week's episode a lot was because Michael Cudlitz directed this week's episode, which I was surprised he was in much of. Yeah, he directed this week's episode.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, there's a one of the promo pictures that they released. He's, like, behind the camera, and they were talking about it before this episode came out. So he directed this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a little bit less of him than we normally do next week, but I would hope that we see a ton of him because he was in, a ton of this episode, which was his episode, but...
Right. Yeah,
right.
No.
Who else other than Doomsday could the next episode apply to?
I
mean, technically Clark, but... Which I guess is also Doomsday, but, like... Yeah,
like
I mean,
Clark.
I think these titles also sometimes are much more like mental
play on words.
Yeah, where it's like, I don't know, like Jordan died mentally, or like Jordan was destroyed, emotionally, and that's the way I feel like they like to do that kind of stuff a lot. But no, I think now that Taz has said it, Doomsday makes the most sense to me. Like, oh yes, that character who's died, like that makes sense.
But I mean, think about the formatting of it, right? So it's to live and die again. So Clark has now lived, and he is threatened with dying again because of his new heart.
You're right. It could be about like preparing to die, like setting himself up, being like, what's that?
Lois' surgery.
Perhaps. I don't know if we're gonna focus on that though, right? Like, I feel like.
I think if I'm gathering that correctly, the surgery is a good thing. I think that's like reconstructive.
No, it is. I'm just saying some things happen.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't want it. I'm just saying. It's a bleak show.
I doubt that they'll do it, but I mean, I've been surprised before.
How sad it was as well. The scene where Superman was trying to follow John Henry's suit, and he flew up into space. Usually, where he connects, with the human race and listens to everybody, and kind of like feels like, oh yeah, my problems are just the same as everyone else's. I'm having this problem, that problem. They're also having this problem. I can relate. I'm not alone, kind of thing. And then also listening for when people need help. And he couldn't hear nothing. He was isolated. You know what I mean? Like very, very isolated in that moment. And it was fucking awesome.
And I think speaking of his hearing too, something I didn't mention when I was talking about this earlier, but when John Henry was asking him about, what was going on with him, I really liked the touch where it was like, hey, you didn't react to the brick going through the window immediately. Like, what happened there? And he was like, oh, like I wasn't paying attention, whatever. But the fact that his hearing is so bad that he couldn't even hear that brick being thrown through the window until it was already through the window is kind of crazy.
Also, what moron threw
John Henry's the one to point it out.
Yeah. Also, what moron threw a brick at Superman? Like, they all know it's Superman now. What moron's like, yeah, I'm gonna go throw this at the wife of the most powerful man on the planet. This should go well. Like, what if he just had a bad day? He's like, you know what? Screw it. Today I'm gonna kill. And just like, went through the wall and killed. Obviously not our Superman, but he doesn't know that. Like, this random guy. Oh gosh, yeah, no. I mean, yeah, no. I really like that scene with John and Clark together. Like, I thought that was a fantastic
it was
scene.
Great.
To just go back to Godfrey, because we kind of skimmed through that just a little bit.
Right.
Like, I legitimately got very emotional when Tom and oh my gosh, Tom and Tyler. Sorry, Tom and Tyler shared the screen again. It just like, I was like, oh, this is the closest we're ever getting to a Superman Lois Flash crossover. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like,
and I've seen people pairing that scene with the scene from, what was it, Crisis on Earth X, where Tom Cavanagh was talking about fighting Superman. He was like, he's fast. I'm faster.
Yeah. They also share that scene in it might be the only time where they properly share a scene, but there's a scene in Elseworld where Sherlock Wells is like, yo, I have an ex-wife on this earth. Can you give her this money? I got child support.
Crisis, when he's pariah on the ship.
Yeah, there's that scene too. There absolutely is that scene.
I gotta say,
he's played so many different characters. It's insane.
Yeah, I had to explain that earlier. I was like, he's everybody. He's just everybody. Like, there's so many people. Like, it's more you can point out who he is, and you're quicker at that. Right. He's all over the damn shop.
And he's so good. Like, he is such a good performer. Like, in that scene, I kept getting goosebumps because of like how he as an actor, how he presents himself, the way he uses his words. There's the one scene there in the interview. I don't know exactly what the line was, but like, he says his words in a way where I'm like, that was Thawne. The way he just said his words there, I was like, oh,
it's the way he it's the way he pitches his voice down like an octave, and he's like very slow and methodical, and he draws out his words, and it's
they will never be able to make me hate his Thawne. Like, listen, I know he has his ups and downs. There's times where I wish it was Matt instead of him. There's times where maybe they shouldn't have used him for certain storylines. But whenever him as an actor is on screen, I get, especially like paired with Grant Gustin's Flash, I don't know if those scenes are ever bad. Like, the storyline might be bad. The things around that might be bad. But I don't know if there's ever been a bad Harrison Wells or like Tom Cavanagh performance in the 10 years now that he's been playing these characters. Like, it's so good. I love him so much. And I got emotional because I was like, that's it. I think that that's the last time we're probably ever going to see Tom Cavanagh in a DC show. And listen, we already said goodbye to the Flash, but there was a moment where I'm like, man, that sucks. That's it. He's done after all these years. That's crazy.
Yeah. I definitely love the fact that we got one last chance to see him.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that this is the Arrowverse homage that the cast has been talking about? Is this the kind of, you'll be happy with it? You think it is?
I think they're underestimating us thinking it's that. I feel like we're going to end the show and be like, wait, what was the homage? I think they're going to be like, oh yeah, we had Eobard Thawne here. Honestly, it kind of worked for me though, because there was a second there I'm like, yes, feels like the good old days again. Him approaching Superman. It's like, it's Superman. It's great to finally meet you. It was like, oh my gosh, it's about to be a speedster fight. I had that feeling in my chest, and it was it felt good for a second. And honestly, it worked.
He did say Flash.
I think that's what they were referring to when he's Flash.
What if Superman gets fixed via them just shrinking Doomsday Heart or whatever, right? And then just at the end, the same portal at the end of Stargirl pops up, and they come and recruit him.
I don't know how I'd feel, to be honest.
John Wesley Shipp shows up again,
or someone
bringing Shade again.
God. Anybody could pop through of the team. You know what I mean? And then just be like, hey, we need the multiverse's strongest Superman.
That'd be really funny.
We need the multiverse's best, strongest, most, accurate Alpha. Superman. The definitive Superman.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want that. I mean, I pitched that all season. I was like, that could, if there is a connection to the Arrowverse, I think what you just described is how they should do it. I 100% think that. If they are going to tie it back in, that's how you do it. I don't know. I've said this, I was so kind of heartbroken once they kind of disconnected themselves. That was such a, it felt like they just killed a show that I love. I felt like I was betrayed by the studio that I supported for so many years. And it was I moved past it. I was like, okay, you don't want to be connected anymore. Fair enough. They've done a lot of great things. And I don't know if I would want them to reconnect at the end. I don't know. I'd be excited in the moment. I'd be like, you know what? Fuck it. Screw it. Let's go. We'll wait and see though. If it happens, maybe people would be pissed though. I know people there is such a side of the fan base that just you have the Arrowverse fans in the fandom, and then you have the Super and Lois, exclusive Super and Lois fans that just love it for that, and they battle each other all the time. It makes me sad. It's why can't we just get along? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I think as a fan of both, after letting last week's episode sit for a bit and then seeing how it played into this week, I do really like the fact that Superman and Lois is separate. I think we'd be very hard pressed to get all of the big things that we did here in this season with it being connected to the larger Arrowverse. But the fact that it is on its own Earth, the fact that there really are no other superheroes around other than Superman. Superman is it. He is him.
Right.
He's the only one there. I think it really allows for them to have a lot more freedom than they otherwise would have if it was set on Earth Prime. I think retrospectively, looking back at that decision, while we might not have liked it at the time, I think the fact that we got as much as we did get, and we had the potential to get so much more even with it being separate and on its own earth. I think it would also be very hypocritical too for us to have talked about last week, the fact that, the Batman and the Penguin, it's all, it's its own thing and it's separate from everything else, and enjoying that, and then not enjoying the fact that they wanted to take this character that we know and love from one Earth and just say, hey, this is a completely different version. It's a new backstory. It's a different Earth. It's a different timeline. It's very similar, but it's different. It's disconnected, and we want to just do our own thing with it. I think that was a very big move, and I think it was the right call looking back at it.
I do agree to an extent. Like, I fully, ending the Arrowverse in one respect, I do kind of understand, because there is so much lore they have to abide by at this point. There are so many shows, so many characters that they already used. Like, I 100% understand as a show being like, well, we're a new Superman show, and we can't use Jimmy Olsen, we can't use Lex Luthor, we can't use Zod, we can't use, whatever various characters they've already casted in their storylines. We have to worry about all these interconnected shows and what they're going on. I 100% understand them wanting to do that. I guess my then pitch is don't start it there. Like, if you wanted a separate Arrowverse show, don't start it as part of the Arrowverse, because it 100% was. Like, people to this day still argue with me, it was always separate. They always meant it to be separate. Absolutely not. Watch the original trailer. So watch that John Diggle scene. Watch that Tal-Rho scene where he's like all the other heroes. Clearly not. They had the...
They literally set it up at the end of Crisis. Why else would they have done that? Why
it's
else
a Crisis spinoff.
Yeah. And they had Diggle literally mention teaming up with Oliver.
Right. 100%.
And mentioning him in the past tense, okay, he died.
And that's
he did
almost...
in Crisis.
That's almost the frustrating thing about how close Superman was to Crisis, is they had the perfect opportunity, if they talked with everybody, to do whatever they wanted, really. With Crisis, you could have recasted Lex Luthor, you could have recasted Jimmy Olsen, but they appeared post-Crisis over on the other stuff. So that, I think, really messed them up. If Jimmy and Lex didn't appear post-stuff, they could have done whatever they wanted. They could have changed the lore. They could have brought in any characters they wanted and stayed faithful to the other shows if they wanted to. They were so close together, but I also understand Supergirl being like, no, we want to bring our Jimmy Olsen in for the final season.
Yeah.
I also get that. That's not fair for them if they can't bring in who they want to end the show. So it's tough. I want to answer Exit Over Here's question. Good friend of mine, obviously. If I'm being honest, I'm still not over how they went about taking themselves out, just because it felt so late last minute in season 2 and not handled the best. But I definitely agree that it's better being separate now. I think I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I do.
They definitely stabbed the fans in the back. They dragged us through the mud for 2 years straight, and then it was like, oh, now we're separate. Blah blah blah. And again, if they were upfront with us from day one, obviously they didn't know. But if they were like, hey, it's a new Superman show with Tyler and Betsy, but it's set on a different Earth. Don't worry about it. We're just doing our own thing. I'd be like, all right, cool, fine.
I think for as great as Superman and Lois is, and for how much it's going to go down as historically most likely the best take on Superman ever, I don't know how it's going to be topped. It will still have that slight tarnished reputation for the fact that they did gaslight the fans for almost 2 seasons.
It's hard to rewatch that.
It was connected.
It's hard to rewatch that Diggle scene retrospectively and from season 1 and be like, you were supposed to. It feels so
out of place. It feels so out of place now. It's like, might as well not have even had it there.
Even in season 2 or season 2. Yeah. The season 2 scene where he shows back up, he's like, "Oh no, this is a different John Diggle. He has a different mustache." It's like, no, you literally had the same hairstyle you had a week ago on The Flash.
I would have almost been the fact that now they had Tom Cavanagh playing a different character. I would have almost been happier if David Ramsey played a different character. Let him just be Jon Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of idea.
Cyborg Superman, maybe.
Or yeah. I mean,
cool.
same sort of idea. He served the same purpose. You get that connective tissue with that actor, but you don't, mess with canon and chronology or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, no. I'm trying to think back what we haven't mentioned at this point, because there was we got on a little bit of a tangent.
How the boys looked when they took out Starlight's
Natalie. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
That was really good. That was really good.
Speaking of which, I also want to bring up the round 2 of the Superman versus Steel fight. Like I'm really glad we got Superman back in the suit. Like that was nice. I was like, okay, we got something. We got another fight scene with Clark. I'm happy again. But I've talked about my parallels to that this season with like the John Henry and kind of what I wanted. Obviously, that's not what I wanted like in terms of like the parallel with John, but it was cool to kind of parallel that first season thing of like Superman versus John, and now vice versa that all these years later. But this time, John doesn't want to kill Superman. Like he's in the same situation he was, but it's like, no, I don't want this. Shut this down. Help me.
Yeah,
like
and
no.
like Clark is having to like gently fight him too. Is just like, hey, no, fun. I don't want to hurt my buddy. Like, come on.
Yeah, no. He fell out of the. He like parachuted out of the steel. I was like, are we gonna kill John?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did anybody there for like a split second think that like John's gonna either fall and die or get seriously injured because Clark is not fast enough to save him now?
Not hearing full.
Yeah. Can't hear. Yeah.
Like, where are you? Where are you? Huh? You where?
Are you screaming, John? Are you okay? Are you screaming?
Yeah.
Is that wind noise in your comms?
Yeah. I feel like we kind of brushed by the Milton stuff as well. A little bit. Like we had Milton. We've been waiting for all season. We've been waiting for Brainiac. I guess I kind of was like slightly disappointed when he wasn't green in the moment. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's all right. I get it. I get why he's not green. They don't have the budget or the time or the whatever for it. But then I was like, oh, all right, that's him. All right, that's what we're doing. All right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they just cut out the middleman like they did on Supergirl. Like they got tired of painting Brainy after a while, so they're like, all right, he's just gonna be human.
Yeah.
Or in his human form. And as much as everybody around the community was kind of using just like the actual like Brainiac photos and stuff like that, we were getting Milton name dropped. I think we only heard the term Brainiac once, and that was in episode 2, I believe. Like the end of episode 2 or 1? End of episode 1. Yeah, end of episode 1, beginning of 2. Where I think they just used it as kind of like a joke, like, oh, Brainiac's not going to be too happy. That Brainiac's not going to be so happy about that, or whatever. And then every time they mentioned him afterwards, it was Milton. Like, so I definitely did not expect to see him in his full Brainiac form. I don't necessarily expect to see him in his full Brainiac form at all. Again, I think that would kind of take away from Lex as the big bad. I think this is, as for a lack of a better term, a glorified cameo. He could be any scientist character, but they're like, okay, we're going to use Milton Fine Brainiac. Like, when are we going to see the human form of Brainiac? If they use Brainiac in the movies, which I hope they do, I think that that's a Superman villain, or can be a Superman villain.
Him in the
movies. They
movies.
haven't tackled a lot. I know that was the big rumor for Man of Steel 2 back in the day, was that we were going to get Superman versus Brainiac. I think that that's also a good Superman Supergirl team up as well. To fight Brainiac. Ooh. I believe there was an animated movie, right, where she was like mind controlled by Brainiac for a little bit. Needless to say, I think that could be a cool route for the movies to take as well.
Brainiac's my pitch for like Justice League. Like I think he'd be a cool bringing everybody together kind of villain.
Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, the video game.
Sure.
With like 12 versions of Brainiac. Oh my god, I don't even know where that story is right now.
They're canceling it, aren't they? So bummed out.
I think they gave up on it. Like it lost the studio like a bunch of money, I think.
Yeah, that's a dead game right there.
I wanna not to go back to Gordon, because I know I've gone back to him several times, but my friend Connor did bring up in like in our Discord earlier, he brought up an interesting thing to me where that I disagreed with him at the time, but the more I thought about it, the more I agreed with him, where he's like, just like Brainiac, Gordon is kind of appearing in name only, and like there is definitely a disappointing factor where it's like Brainiac is not going to be the Brainiac we kind of think of, or we want to be getting, and Gordon is another character that is very much. At first, I'm like, oh yeah, he's just like a reporter in the DC. Where I was like, no, he is definitely tied to New Gods and Darkseid and stuff like that, and like,
I mean, we got him in this kind of form in Young Justice, though.
Yeah, sure.
So I was like, okay, that's kind of like an homage
Sure.
to that maybe as well.
It kind of teases like, and I hope Superman and Lois does kind of end in like, well, going into another day where it's like, okay, it's just gonna be another day as Superman or Superboy or whatever. Like the story kind of continues. Do we think eventually they would have done proper Brainiac if the show had went on, or would they eventually have done proper Darkseid potentially?
I would have hoped that they would have gone full on cosmic. I would have hoped that they jumped the shark. Like, and that's kind of what taking the Doomsday Superman fight off world and taking it to the moon and stuff like that. Like, I think that was starting to, jump the shark a little bit. We had a little bit of multiversal stuff with the inverse world and Bizarro and things like that, but that was really that was the only thing that the show never really tackled, was the cosmic side of Superman, the space-based fact of him is, we've thrown him into the sun to power him up before, and he can breathe in space and stuff like that. Like, why not utilize that? Right. Why not, bring in Mongol and do Warworld? Why not bring in Brainiac? Yeah. Why not, have Darkseid? Maybe, do something that requires Superman to go off-world. Maybe even bring in the Lantern Corps in a way if they really wanted to do, really revive that Diggle story. He doesn't have to be the same one. Just like do something like that. Yeah. I think that would have been really cool. Unfortunately, obviously, we're not going to get to see it. But who knows? Not that I am hoping for the new DCU to flop immediately. But imagine, say, Creature Commandos does not do super, super well. The James Gunn Superman movie is received lukewarm to poorly. What do they do? Yeah. Could they go back on their word and be like, you know what? Maybe we will revive some of these old things and put them under the Elseworlds label if you guys really like them. I think
Lois comic books would be kind of fun if they wanted to go that route. Although it seems like they're ending the show in a way.
It's too much copium and hopium.
While I agree that would have been fun to see, I think they played to their strengths, right? Because even just going to the fortress, you can see that is not their strength. A CGI background is not their strength. And that would be all CGI. And I think they would have just lost everybody because there would have been a discernible quality in space and back in Smallville.
We're living in a scenario. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we're living in a scenario where we get more of a budget than less of a budget. Like, it just goes up every season instead of going down. Which, I mean, I've said this for years. I think Superman and Lois, I've defended CW for years. I think Superman and Lois is on their own network. I think, it's done this show a massive disservice on their budget and their promotional team and just, how they treat their shows. I think you could put the level of writing. I think you could have put Superman and Lois on HBO in terms of how it's written and stuff like that. Dude, and the performances.
Imagine Superman and Lois with the budget of the Penguin.
Yeah, that's why listen, I'm very sad this era of DC TV is ending. Obviously, it's never going to be the same what we got previously. But Lanterns being not even a Max show, an HBO show. HBO is known 9 times out of 10 for their quality TV shows. 90% of the time, they make sure. Yes, I realize stuff like Game of Thrones kind of went off the wayside later in their seasons, but 9 times out of 10, from my understanding, they make great television. And it's just what's Lanterns going to be looking like on HBO? What's Booster Gold potentially going to look like on HBO and stuff like that? I love the idea of these DC shows now, hopefully not having a super tight requirement on budget. Obviously, they're going to have budget restrictions to a point. Don't go the Disney Plus route where it's here's a $5 million Secret Invasion show or whatever it is. But give them the budget they need to make the storylines they want to do. You know what I mean? And I think a characters like Lanterns is going to be super fun to hopefully see that. It seems like it's going to be more grounded. But you could argue Superman and Lois is slightly grounded as well. And look what they're able to do with their acting and stuff like that. So it's I'm excited for what that could potentially look like, even if our era of shows have kind of ended.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we have not gone over that you guys want to go over? I know we talked about a lot.
Some small interesting comparison. I think it is kind of cool that we have now had 2 versions of Brainiac this year. My Adventures with Superman, and then now with Superman and Lois. I think that's been kind of fun.
Their version of Brainiac was so good. They had such a good version of the character.
Voiced by Michael Emerson.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh,
great as well.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
I need them to bring him into some big like MCU thing or DC. Like I want him to play like a massive villain or like a massive thing, like him in Lost. Like Ben in Lost is still one of my favorite villains of all time at this point. Like he's so good, and every time he plays in anything, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's great. I mean, I guess he was in DC as well over in Arrow, but I feel like they didn't really give him a chance to be good. I guess.
He was kind of.
I love how much credit they give the boys. In that, like, they're growing up, they make decisions as a family. They've had the discussion themselves about Clark and like his heart disease, and immediately they're like, right, well, the boys need to know, and I think that's amazing and shows their strength and why they work so well together. Also, it was weird as hell that Jamie Kennedy kept trying to add everybody. That was a trip. I don't know why that kept happening. Poor bastard kept getting drawn out, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Let's actually talk about the B plot just really quickly, because Taz mentioned that at the top with the Candace situation. I do agree. Easily weakest part of the episode. The Candace thing definitely felt like, oh, we don't have a B plot for this episode. What can possibly be the B plot? So it's like, oh, they break up, but not really break up because they're actually fine at the end of the episode. It's like,
I was like, come on, if you're gonna do it, just commit to it. Like, Candace is needed. Candace has been a problem. She's been a problem since season 2.
Clark was right.
No,
Clark was right.
This episode 100% proved his point, where it's like, I know you love his thing back in season 1 with Sarah. It's like, I know you feel like you love this person, but it's most likely not going to last. And this episode kind of proved like, Sarah knows, and now they're broken up, and now Candace knew, and they were broken up, and now back together. I guarantee they're not lasting the next year and a half or whatever of their relationship.
I love the little dig too from Jordan when John was like, I got thrown out of school, I got thrown out of school for her, and he was like she didn't make you take the drugs. Yeah, it's like she didn't make you take the space drugs, bro. Like, it's like not the point.
Yeah. In this episode, I unfortunately, and I defended her in the past, but I did kind of realize like, I actually don't really like Candace that much, unfortunately. And it's nothing for her character. I think she's totally fine. Like, I loved everything that we got to do with her father, like, last season. Like, her being like, did he really hurt John? Can I go? Like, I thought all that stuff was great. But, like, I realized in now 3 seasons, they haven't really done a lot to make me like Candace as a character. She is just John's boyfriend. You know what I mean?
I think she's been more so a catalyst for things, is like, because she exists, things happen.
Plot device. Yeah.
She had the X kryptonite, and that's how John got it, and that's how he got kicked out of school. Her dad is crazy and punched John in the face, and that's how we got the scene last season with Clark going and confronting him. And without that, we wouldn't have gotten the big reveal scene this season. So, her character has had a purpose, and I think, she's served that purpose, but thinking about it, in a realistic sense is like, come on, John, you're not making the best decisions here, bro.
Right.
But,
Right. Yeah. I feel, I mean, like, listen, I like her enough. I wish I had a point in this episode where, like, I wish I liked you more. I wish I cared. Like, I realized when they broke up, it was like, that sucks. I don't really care though. Like you don't make me care that you guys are breaking up or whatever. Like,
it's like, oh no. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of people online being like, oh, they can finally make John bi now that they're broken up. And 5 minutes later, I was like, nope, actually not. Because like in the comics, John is bi in the comic book. So many people want them to explore that storyline. Which again, I've been very kind of like, as someone who is bi, like I've been very like, if they want to, I don't care. Like I don't care if they have time or if the actor is comfortable. Maybe, but like I have no issue if they never touch on that. Like I think it's fine.
Do you think we will get a version of John in the movies eventually? Like I know we're starting with
that'd be cool.
younger Superman, but do we eventually get to Superboy and everything? Because I know that they did a ton of stuff with John in the comics recently, and not super recently, like within the last few years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he was stuck on an alt universe, and he like aged a ton and like lived a whole bunch. And I don't necessarily know the specifics, but I just remember a few things that could be pretty interesting on the big screen.
Sure.
But
I think like obviously we're nowhere near that timeline in terms of the DC. Like we're still very early on in Superman's career. So like they've talked about doing a 10-year, maybe 15-year plan for the DCU. Hopefully it goes beyond that. Like I hope they don't just stop at 10 years or whatever. Like, like MCU is currently 14, 15 or whatever. So I do hope they go beyond that. But perhaps if they want to go that route, I like seeing Clark as I think this has really been the first time I think on screen we've seen Clark have a family. Like it's always we never really get to see them commit to that, and it's been great. I think that's what makes this show so special. So I'm open to it if that's the direction I want to go.
Yeah, I mean the closest thing was Superman Returns. When did we ever figure out if that was really his kid or not in Superman Returns? Yeah. So that's like the closest they ever went to it.
Yeah.
But something I did also just think about too, they're starting with Damian Wayne Robin in the DCU.
They are.
So we could that is their opportunity to do Super Sons. Come on.
Just like a 50-year-old Damian and a 12-year-old John.
But it's weird too that I actually saw people posting clips from that Super Sons animated movie that came out relatively recently. Again,
unless they do the clone Superboy instead of that, like unless they do,
and then they do John Kent.
They could do that,
like Connor. Well,
right.
I mean, I guess they turn.
How far
Connor
is he into his relationship with Lois though? Like, are they just meeting?
We don't know. Like I think
it's a fresh relationship and he gets a clone baby.
Yeah,
that's tough.
I think it would have to be a couple years in. Like I imagine maybe like this would maybe be like a year 3, year 4 into this universe or whatever. Because I mean we're getting Titans. Like I could see a world where maybe you threw a Connor on a Titans if you like merge Young Justice, Teen Titans together a little bit. Like throw on a Wally instead of a Cyborg or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, my whole idea, I know we talked about this probably over a year ago at this point now, but my whole idea for the new DCU originally was make it pre-established. Like if we're starting with Damian Wayne, Batman or Bruce has been Batman for at least 7 to 10 years. Clark has been Superman for the same amount of time. We've got Barry's training Wally, that kind of thing. Like we are at a state where things have been moving. I think that would have been the most interesting point to pick it up at, because for as much as you will have a lot of new audience members, also a lot of people watching these are fans. They've seen the animated shows, they've seen the live action shows, they've read comics. Like the audience is not dumb.
Right.
So I don't think that we need to be treated as such and start from the beginning again. All right, Clark, Krypton blew up, Bruce's parents got killed. Like we don't need to start there all the time.
And it seems like what they're trying to do, except for Superman. Like it's like you already have a Batman, you already have a blanket, Green Lantern's there and Hawker, all these things are already established. Yeah. And then it's Superman being like, "Oh boy, I'm new here," and it's
but it's like usually Superman's the first, one of the first.
Like now Superman is going to be in the same kind of generation as your Dick Grayson and your Wally West and your Jon Stewart, which, not saying that's always bad, because that's kind of similar to the Justice League animated show lineup a little bit. Like it seems like they're kind of merging the Justice League universe, or Justice League and Young Justice a little bit in terms of where we're at starting your universe. But having everyone's having Batman and I think Hal Jordan is one of the big ones where it's like, ooh, Hal Jordan's 50, and then Superman's gonna be 20, 30 at this point. There's a big
and
I don't know.
Bruce and Clark are kind of supposed to be roughly the same age. Like they could be brothers, but now what is Bruce gonna kind of be the cool uncle or something?
Yeah, it seems like Clark's gonna be like the newbie to like I would not also be shocked if Wonder Woman's also already established. It's been like
100%.
Those two together all these years, and then Superman's like the newbie that's like, I'm here, guys, I'm fresh and whatever. It's like
in a weird way, do you think Superman's gonna be kind of like the point of view of the audience kind of character? Like,
100%.
oh, this is a whole fantastical world, all these established heroes, all these established villains, all this crazy cool new stuff. Like, oh, what's going on? I think, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have my restraints for this universe for sure. Like, there's things like most of the things I've heard I've been very excited for, but there have been some things where I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to answer Defunct's comment here before we kind of start to end the stream. It would be funny if they do flash forward scene with Jonathan and Jordan having them married their high school sweethearts. I hope not. I do expect a time jump. That I at least really want a time jump to see. I'd like to see similar things. Like maybe we do see like I think it'd be cool from the eyes of Clark and Lois as they get to grow old, watching their family grow. Like they get to see them maybe get married and maybe go to college and get married and blah blah blah. You get to see like a couple of Thanksgivings or something, like going through their life and growing old together, and then them becoming the proper super sons. Like it ends with like maybe Clark and Lois on the farm and rocking chairs as the boys fly up to do Superman stuff. Like I think that'd be kind of fun if they wanted to do that.
I think.
Would you do a recast at that point?
No, just let the just
give them a bad wig.
Like, yeah. I mean, I feel like they've got to do some sort of makeup now at this point to like make them look a little bit younger. Like if you see stuff like interviews and things like that, they certainly look older in real life than they are presented on the show. So I think that unless we're doing like a 20, 30 year time jump, if we're just doing like maybe a 5-10 year time jump, they're supposed to be playing like 16 on the show, so that would jump them up to roughly the age that they are. Answering that question that you pulled up just slightly, I did hear, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I did see something about the fact that there's going to be some Jordan and Sarah stuff in the finale apparently.
Oh,
so
I kind of hope not. I hope they don't do that, because I've really liked Jordan's arc this season of like, and Sarah's arc too, of like, rebalancing their friendship after being in a relationship. Like I think it's a really nice parallel to Clark and Lana, of just like, well,
you're right.
Like we love each other. Like they've clearly very much care for each other, but not necessarily in a relationship way. Like relationships sometimes don't work out, and that's okay. And that's the point. We grew together, and then they can kind of be friends, lifetime friends, without maybe being lovers or whatever. Like I think that could be a fun way to kind of end it.
Yeah.
We'll see though. We'll see. Before we wrap. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I kind of said my piece as far as where I think the show's gonna end. But what do you guys think? We got 2 episodes left, penultimate and finale. Where do we see the show ending? Like, does Clark keep his powers? Does he not keep his powers? Do the boys get their suits? Lex in prison, not in prison? What's going on?
I mean, I feel like I've echoed it this season and this stream for sure. I think we saved Clark's life. Like, I don't think he's going to die in 20 years. I think they need to fix that. But I do think he retires from Superman. I think he, if not fully retires, partly retires, gives it to the mantle, inspires the generation to step up or whatever. I think we have that. And it's kind of like what we just said. I think, we see that, and then we see the flash forwards of like, what their family looks like, how the generation of Superman and the boys and their mantle kind of takes flight. Like, I'd love to see a shot with like the steel suit with the cape or whatever and all these things, and how he's inspiring people and stuff like that. Like, that would be my ideal way of ending the show. And then again, ending it with a brightful tomorrow, like a something that just makes us feel good and, inspired of the future of humanity. Because I think that's what Superman is kind of all about. That's what I'd like. Darth, do you have theories or things you want to see before the end? How you want it to end?
I we've been talking about it for weeks, and I do anticipate a Solomon Grundy-esque doomsday vibe. I do hope that Clark will get his powers back, like in the same way that Lois is having reconstructive surgery. I do hope that he comes through this and gets a reconstruction of his own. However, we all know that the show is bleak but hopeful. So, you know, it is more likely that Darren is right in that it's just going to finish with his retirement, and definitely, no matter what, the Suns are going to get their super suits for sure.
I will be so sad if we don't get those suits.
For sure.
We've got to see them at least at the end of next week. Like, I would be so upset if we just see them in the finale and that's it.
I see Amanda dying. Whether or not she sacrifices herself, or there's a point where she's like, you know what, this is too much for me, I'm out of here, and then Lex is just like, hell no, you're not. And then but yeah, no, Lex is in prison for sure.
Yeah, I need those suits. I'd be so sad if we end the show we don't get to see those suits, man. We're not gonna say anything. We have seen some concept stuff, and if we get to see those in live action, man, I'll be so happy. I'll be so unbelievably happy because they look so good.
Speaking of suits, I think the Superman suit has really grown on me. The more we've seen it, the more I like it. This new updated version.
Like he can change it like that. He doesn't even have to do the spin anymore. Like it's literally book and it's on, and he's out the window.
I did really like
cool.
This. Yeah,
that was really cool.
I did really like the scene as well, where it's like we don't have a secret identity anymore. We can just I can just fly you places, babe. Like and then like that scene when Lois is like, babe, you flew me here. I can't get home.
Yeah, there's no car. Sorry. But instead, John and Jordan just decide to take the truck instead of fly. I don't know what's going on there.
I think that to that point, it's kind of like, this is the third point I forgot. Thank you. Right. So, basically, her whole issue is the whole super part of the life, right? So I think flying down to reconcile the relationship that broke up from that point would be a bit of a slap in the face. So I think turning up in a truck is a bit of a sign of show respect to say, you know, like, hey, everything can be normal. We're just normal people, you know. We're just here. I love you.
Right.
That's a good perspective. I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm you know what? I was kind of worried we wouldn't have enough footage or stuff to talk about, but we've went the same amount of time with only one show, so
yeah.
I'm grateful. I do want to bring up one thing really quickly just because I think it's funny. We don't talk about news on the show very much, but I did want to bring it up because it kind of relates to the CW stuff a little bit. We got the Big Belly Burger for Peacemaker season 2.
I did see that.
I like how Blue Beetle started with it, and now Peacemaker, and it's like this universe is very much. I honestly make it your like Stanley cameo, where like every project we get like a Big Belly Burger cameo.
Which universe has the best Big Belly Burger though?
I don't know.
I think
DC should just open real ones. They should just start a franchise now.
That's fine with error.
I did see actually I ended up not getting anything from it, but there was a time where I was at a convention. Again, this is a story that I still need to tell one day. I'm not today, but there was a real life CC Jitters.
Oh
yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun. There needs to be like I don't know, like some kind of an amusement park or something that just has like fictional restaurants. It's like a giant place where you can get like Big Belly Burger, and then you can get the thing from Riverdale, and just go like get the shop
Pop's
from Friends. Yeah, get the shop from Friends. Like it's just it's a giant place you can visit. You can try out all these fictional restaurants from your favorite TV, like Krabby Patty. You can do like Mr. Krabs, Krabby Patty, whatever. Just all the famous restaurants, just all in one place.
Well, Six Flags is like has deals with Warner Brothers and stuff like that, so that's why you've got like the Batman and Superman rides and stuff like that. That would be kind of the perfect amusement park to put that stuff in.
Love it, absolutely love it. Alrighty, with that being said, that's gonna be it for this week's episode. Taz, where can people find you?
youtube.com/ToxicTaz. Be on the lookout for that review this week. It's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely. Darth, where can people find you?
Just check out YouTube and Darth Bunyan.
Absolutely. Love to see it. And for me, we can talk today. We will be back next Tuesday, hopefully with the penultimate episode of Superman and Lois. And I'm thinking potentially, I don't know how I'm going to squeeze it in. I might do it before or after or something. Maybe do a Cobra Kai. I might bring someone on, doing it an hour earlier, but someone with Cobra Kai. Maybe before you guys come in, I don't know. I'll do something around that time. But yeah, and also Pipeline this either Thursday, Friday. I don't know when it's going to get scheduled yet. We're going to be ranking some Disney movies ahead of Moana 2 next weekend. So that should be very fun. And yeah, without further ado, I hope Defunct, thank you everyone in the chat today. It's been great talking with everybody. And yeah, without further ado, I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye-bye.